Welcome to the You Can Mentor podcast. This is your boy, Zach, and I'm here with Grant Skeldon. Grant, say hi.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
Man, Grant, it is so good to have you, man. I've loved keeping up with you and what's going on up in Nashville. And so, man, how's it going today?
It's going good. Married for 4 years now, and about to be Valentine's Day, and and then also working on an old home. That's what me and Shine are always up to these days. We bought a 100-year-old house, and honestly, Zach, she's like so outdoing me in the construction area. Her dad was a carpenter, but it's pretty crazy what this girl can do compared to what I know how to do.
Dude, it is the same thing with like, I barely know how to like use a hammer, use a screwdriver, but then my wife has her like kit, like she's got like all of the tools, she's got like
Okay,
the
so
tool belt. And like, man, I was trying to tell that to my dad and he like could not comprehend it. He was like, wait, what wait, you don't do it, but your wife does? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, yeah. I help a ton, but I mean, it's a lot of math at the end of the day, and she's
Yeah.
hella good at this. I need this machine or this tool to do it the right way. And yeah, if she runs into a problem, she just calls her dad and FaceTimes him, and it's been cool to see her do that. And then we came to a really close point last night and building a guest room, so we're excited.
All right. Super fun, man. Yeah, so I met Grant. I mean, heck, dude, it's like 2018, 2019, perhaps.
Hmm.
Um, man, so here's a fun fact, Grant. So I started to write a book because of our interaction.
Remind me, explain it to me.
Yeah. So we were in the coffee shop of a church in Dallas,
Right,
and we had met through like a couple friends, and you had just released your first book.
I do remember now. Yeah,
And I just said something. I was like, man, it would be so cool to write books. Like I try to write on the side and this and that. And you were just so encouraging. You were like, dude, you need to call this person and you need to keep writing and you need to do that. And I'm like, okay, fine. And like, sure enough, I got that guy's cell phone number and I called him and we spent time together. And about 18 months later, I had a book in my hand. So
yeah.
thanks so much for that.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Zach, about what I love about you is a couple things. Is one, I know that you were impacted by discipleship and definitely prioritize discipleship, but um, it's hard in today's culture because everyone cares about discipleship, values discipleship, thinks it's important. It's one of the hardest problems is when the thing you're advocating for is something that everyone actually is for, they just don't do and or know how to do or ever received. And so having more people like you that are practitioners doing it and then putting it in word form so people that will never meet you or could read your book when you're asleep could be impacted by it. I was like, yeah, we need more practitioners that do the hard work pausing for a moment, putting it into the word format so more people could be impacted by it. So, yeah, it's awesome that I got to play some type of role in that.
Well, thanks a lot for saying that, Grant. Um, yeah, man, like I just have a heart to if I can help people remove obstacles to build relationships with kids, specifically
Yeah.
kids who have experienced hard things in the name of Jesus. I mean, that's an honor and a gift. And it's fun, like man, like it is so fun to see people's lives and generations be transformed because someone stepped in. And so
Yeah. Can I ask you a question actually on that? Because
oh
that's a little
yeah,
different
for
than
sure.
my experiences. You kind of made an emphasis on the mentorship and discipleship of young people who have been through hard things. Would you say, yeah, how is it different when someone mentors or disciples someone that's been through some difficult seasons of life compared to, let's say, you're talking to a church in Newport Beach who's going to disciple kids in Newport Beach? Not to say none of them have been through hard things. It's just going to be different types of hard, if you will. But how would you maybe coach those people in Newport to those people in like South Dallas? Because I know you've done a lot of work in the Dallas area as well.
Yeah, man. That's a great question, Grant. I would just say like kind of the more harder things that a kid has experienced, right? Like if they've experienced certain kinds of trauma, like if they come from like a single parent home or if they've experienced certain kinds of poverty, you just kind of got to wade, like you got to kind of wade into their mess,
Yeah.
and you have to be patient with them. And I would say the most important thing that I would say is kind of what separates mentoring a kid, making a disciple of a kid who has experienced those things is just you have to truly work hard to create that kind of trust. And you have to create a safe environment. Whereas a kid who maybe hasn't experienced those kinds of things, they're a lot, they're kind of a lot kind of quicker to trust, and um, they're not on the lookout for ways that this person can kind of hurt them. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, man.
Would you say that loyalty after though on the back end is maybe a little stronger?
Oh, dude, 100%. Like this happens all of the time. Like someone says, "Hey, I want to mentor." They start spending time with the kid for the first month. It's, this kid's giving them nothing for the first 6 months. This kid's giving them nothing, but then something switches. And man, I have seen it take as long as 18 months. But it's kind of like once they truly believe that you're for them, once they know that you love them, not for what they do, but for who they are, and that, you know, you're a safe place, then they're all in.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I would say that it kind of does take longer, but um, I would also say just that, like, I don't want to say it's more impactful, but if a kid who comes from like a, kind of a stronger family, they've got aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpa, they've got a youth group, they've got K Life, they've got Young Life, they've got coaches, like, you're one of their mentors. But for some of these kids that we spend time with, it's like, man, they might not have one person who's investing into them. They might not have one person who's asking them a bunch of questions or
it's good.
just saying, "Hey, man, I'm here for you." So,
Like a lifeline.
yeah, for sure. But, well, Grant, man, you're asking me all of these questions, and I had you on the podcast to ask you, man. So, switching it up. Okay, so Grant, man, you are up to like a bunch of things. You are starting a church, isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah. We started a church a year and 4 months ago, called Way Church in Nashville.
Okay, okay. How's it going with that?
Uh, I'm a big believer in the fivefold ministry. I think every single Christian should be way more familiar with their fivefold leaning from Ephesians 4, than their Enneagram or their DISC assessment or all those things. And I don't think those things are bad. I think anything that can make you more self aware is helpful. But I think people should be like well acquainted with. If you're not familiar in Ephesians 4:11, we know usually the second half of this verse. We don't often know the first half. Is it says that God gave us apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, teachers to build up the body and equip the saints for the work of ministry. We usually just quote the build up the body and equip the saints for the work of ministry. And what a miss, in my opinion, that we don't talk about the through apostolic wiring, I believe, prophetic wiring, evangelistic wiring, shepherding wiring, and teacher wiring. And so, since we don't emphasize all of those, we tend to just go with what we've seen in the church, which often, I believe, over glorifies speaking and under glorifies disciple making. So, it's a lot of young people. I see them every day. We all see them who want to be speakers. They want to be great orators or communicators. And I'm not against it, but I say all that to say most of the time, senior pastors are teachers or maybe prophetic speakers. And just to be clear, I don't believe there are apostles today, and I don't think there are prophets today. I would say wiring. I do think there are giftings. Jonathan Pekluda is a mutual friend of both of ours, and I've told him this, and even like Matt Chandler, and I think these guys are considered like great speakers or even Bible teachers. But the difference between a teacher is a teacher shines light on God's word, while prophetic wiring shines light on man's heart in light of God's word. And usually they're calling you to something higher. Like to me, Francis Chan is one of the best at doing it. He rarely teaches you anything new. He just convicts you of things you still haven't obeyed yet. And it's a good. We need people to call us higher, call us back, reform us, if you will. And all that to say, Noah Heron, Pastor Noah Heron at my church, he is just turned 30 years old, and this dude's an evangelist, big time on evangelism. It is rare you see someone who's a senior pastor who's an evangelist because it's hard for an evangelist to be within the confines of the church. Because once you get plugged into a church more, even as a Christian, let alone a Christian leader, you just start being around Christians most of the time. If you look at your calendar, you have to like carve out time and work to start being around unbelievers. And so for him, there's a big build up to say like he is sharing the gospel every Sunday. I've never been to a church that's as evangelistic as him. He's constantly thinking of those who haven't come to church before or are searching. And it's honestly the perfect place at the perfect time being in Nashville when so many people are moving here. I jokingly call Nashville the Caitlin Clark of cities. Like everyone's talking about it. It came out of nowhere. Everyone's moving here from all over. And Zach, like 80% of our church did not even live in Nashville 4 or 5 years ago. It's mostly new people who moved here recently. And all churches are being impacted by that. But we've really focused on community because they're new to the city and that's what they're looking for, and evangelism. And then I want to very soon focus more on discipleship because it's a lot of new believers. But over the last year and a half, as he shared the gospel, no matter what the sermon is, even on Vision Sunday, he shared the gospel, gives an opportunity to respond. Even right now, we're going through Sermon on the Mount. And his text, luckily, as I teach once a month, I'm on the teaching team. His text was on divorce 2 weeks ago. And even then, he found a way to tie what this go. So he always used like the last 3 minutes. And how does the gospel reflect what we've talked about today? And he did he did that, and still like 6 people got saved. But over the last year and a half, over 400 people have given their lives to Jesus. Mostly young people. I'd say about 80% of our church is also under 40. And anyway, so ironically, some young people I mentored and one of the executive pastors, someone I discipled back in college, and now we all as friends. Again, I said right time, right place. And then I would just say right group of friends that get to like start a church together has been super, super fun to see quickly what God's doing.
And so what a great reminder for us who are mentoring, who are building relationships with kiddos, just like there really isn't ever a bad time to share the gospel, like to really talk about Jesus, talk about what he's been up to in your life, or talk about how, you have seen him move. Man, I want to focus in on that word that you said, community. Like how can community help enhance or help you in your mentoring discipleship journey?
Man, there's so many directions to go with that. I How can community help advance in your discipleship journey? Um, I mean, one of the first ways, if you want to reach the next generation, you've got to focus on community. I often say that the next generation is absolutely saturated with content, but they are starved of connection. And so for us, we are heavily focused on community at Way Church because um, people are new and they're moving to the city. And often when you move to a new city, especially if you bring your family with you, it's a major step of faith. And I had a mentor named Eric Swanson who would often say this line that people are most susceptible to the gospel in transition more than in stability. And so if you think about even your story of when you came to the Lord, often it was Zach, like for me, it was right after a big breakup of 3 years. For many people, it's after some type of shift or this, it's like it changes something in their story and it really reveals to us what has always been the case is we didn't have control of our life. We had things that comforted or numbed our life. But those changes open our hands. And so as new people move, maybe I invited them to church before and on a Wednesday night thing or a Sunday, you're like, oh, Sunday mornings is when we like to do this. They have their routine, they have their rhythms, they have their safety net, if you will. But when they're new, it's kind of like I found even unbelievers move to a new city sometimes. Like, God, if you're there, would you just make this a smooth transition? Would you give us friends fast? Would you give us neighbors that we enjoy? Would you put my kid in schools that the teacher takes like a liking to them and they find their friends? It's so going to be so hard for our kids to upbeat from where they're at. And if you can be a church that's like, we're not just going to welcome you, because I think that's a lot of what churches focused on is hospitality, mostly welcoming and welcoming environment, which is good. Like there's always the welcome home signs at a lot of churches, which is again so good, positive. thing, not a bad thing. But my goal is not to welcome people alone to an event. My people is to connect people to other people. Because if I can not just make you feel welcome, but I can actually Sunday connect you to someone who kind of potentially could resonate with you. Like I'm trying to ask as I'm walking them, I like walk people to the room. It's not just hello and you're welcome. It's hey, are you? How long have you been coming? And if they then the first question usually is, have you lived here for a long time? Or are you new here? If they say no, then where did you move from? As soon as I know the state that they moved from, I want to think, who do I know in this church that's also from that state? What kind of work do you do? Once I know someone that's like, oh, they do that kind of work, who do I know in this church that also does that kind of work? Because if I can sit them as a new or new-ish person to someone else who they can be like, oh, you're from this city too, or you're from that state, or it's just quick connection. Like I'm trying to eliminate hurdles. And now all of a sudden, they're not just coming back because they felt welcome or they thought the sermon was good or worship was good. It's like, oh, I actually have someone like who I got their number. They want to sit together again. Ideally, it moves beyond just sitting together because that is not community alone, especially not community. I'm not, yeah, I'm not, that's not who I'm calling when things are hard, is who I sit with. So it's a start. But I want them to exchange numbers, get together afterwards, maybe to go to lunch together. And so last thing I'll say on the Zach is like, we really try to, train our people to be like really good listeners of people who are new. Like again, people who are in transition are more susceptible to the gospel than those in stability. And so if they're new, I say that's like a dog whistle. Like there's dogs that can hear that dog whistle that no one else can hear. If you hear that at Way Church, as with the missionary mindset was just one of our core values, we stop hanging with the friends that we get to see every week and we know we're comfortable and say, how do we include that person into this conversation? And ideally, if that can spill into our community, especially our jobs, like you got someone who just joined your job, make it so much easier for them to get connected to the friend group than people maybe made it for you. If someone's new to the neighborhood, so much easier for them to get connected. That's like, I think, going to win hand over fist against any other type of church is you are a community first church, not just a welcoming one.
Yeah, and, like, as I hear all of that and I'm thinking about mentoring, it's like, man, that connection over content, like, that is just gonna win the day 100 times out of 100 because
Yeah,
there are so many young people out there today who I mean, they've got all the books, they've got the internet, they've got, you know, anything that they want, they can find on their phone, but what can't they find on their phone? They can't find that connection,
yeah,
and like some of our mentees, right? Like they might be going through transition. Maybe they thought that they were going to make, you know, make the basketball team and they didn't. Maybe they had a girlfriend and they just broke up. Maybe they changed schools. Maybe they moved. And for us as mentors to know that, oh, okay, when there is transition, that is a great time for me to talk about Jesus and to talk about hope and to talk about the one person who won't ever fail you, the one person who won't
yes,
ever leave you.
yes,
And then, man, just like there is so much power in connecting your mentee to your network. So, like,
for sure.
if your mentee likes baseball and I don't like baseball, but I have a buddy who does, what a great opportunity for me to connect my mentee to as many caring adults who like the same things that they like. I just think that that's a win, man. So,
Yeah, I mean, you totally change your scorecard on success if you start introducing someone like 5 years, especially 10 years younger than you, to what's normal in your community. Like, I mean, one of the biggest things for me was 2 weeks into getting saved, having a man, Kevin Batista, know that I just got saved and call me and basically invite me to. He did more of a follow me type of relationship. And there's, of course, like, come and meet with me. We're going to talk to the Bible, pray, maybe talk about your week and how I could help guide you and give you advice. But it was definitely, he's like, I don't have the time to meet with you. I'll be honest. He's like, but if you follow me, if you make the time, you can join me when I'm at work. He was a pastor, so he had a little more flexibility with his work, sometimes with his family. And um, yeah, especially being around him and leaders and the kind of leader meetings he was having, I was like, man, I wanna be like this guy. I mean, as you already know, the discipleship being caught more than it's taught is really shifted my scorecard in a lot of ways. But what I will say is that for connection and community, how much it matters to discipleship. Because what I was talking about maybe is a little more broad, like church culture, and how to connect them. I would say for discipleship, trying to go beyond even connection to that's where you get the opportunity to create something you don't really get to do in church too much is instead of thinking about content, you can create core memories. And when I said, who am I going to call when things get hard? Again, it's not often who I just sat with once or twice during church. But if I've had core memories with you, I think I would call you. Like if I had core memories with you, if I need help in a certain thing and I'm like, oh, I keep running into this wall here, but I'm like, oh, but I know them and I know they're good at that, or I've seen their marriage and that they're a couple steps ahead spiritually. They've been there and done that. I don't whether they're some big leader, I don't think, oh, maybe they're too busy for me or maybe I need to get to their assistant and maybe find a time. I'm like, no, I got their number. We stayed up till like 1 in the morning at this camp one time and that like we just had this connection. It's fun, adventure, whatever it is, spontaneity, however I can create core memories among the right people. That's I found when if I could only have 2 days with, let's say, getting mentors and mentees together, if I can create core memories, it will spill over for the next like year or two because those like bonds that we just don't have in today's society anymore. Like, Zach, and I'm realizing, especially too, how much you have to fight for community after college. It's like before college, it's built in. You're on sports leagues at school. You're probably on a sports league even outside of school. You're on a literal team. If you asked most people, when did you feel the most like you were a part of something with a group of people that had your back? Even people 20, 30, 40 years past this point, they'll be like, oh, it was back in like high school or if maybe college sports. And I'm like, we've got to create that kind of connection and core memories outside of just that time in life. But after college, which again, you live near each other, you maybe even in sororities or fraternities, but after that, you live in a neighborhood that you rarely, even barely, maybe know the neighbor next to you, let alone just two homes away. That's really far. You barely often know even the neighbor right next to you, left, next to you, on right. You like maybe know their name, have potentially never been over. You kind of know what they do, and it is a different world after college. And so, of course, we're lonely. And so, if you can create these core memories for these people, no matter what age, it's like I think all generations desperately need core memories, connection, way more than just more content. They can get on Google today. They can Chat GPT can do it all at this point. Like we are not set apart from the world by just giving more content. But if we can get content through relationships, that's literally how Jesus did it. Like his sermons are not yeah, most of the sermons we preach aren't even from his sermons. Most of the sermons we preach are from his conversations with people. We just have turned them into sermons. Like we have way more content from his conversations than actually his sermons.
Man, and I think one thing that I hear so often, Grant, whenever I talk to people about mentoring, making uh, disciples, is like, I just don't feel like I'm qualified. Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have anything to offer. Maybe, they're not as far along in their job as they want to be. Maybe their kids aren't perfect. But if you can just spend time with a kid, if you can just show up and if you can listen to them and if you can make them feel like they have worth and like they have value, like this isn't rocket science, right? Like it is just showing up and building that relationship day after day and trying to help them experience the love of Christ by your actions, by your words, by showing up. But man, just like if you could just kind of tell me like what are some of the some of the roadblocks that you've seen in regards to why people don't want to start getting into these kinds of relationships.
Yeah, I've got about 4 reasons that I've heard the most. We could call them excuses, we could call them common roadblocks or barriers to discipleship. I do think they're warranted, but the 4 most consistent reasons I hear someone basically, yeah, the 4 most consistent reasons why I ever hear someone say, "This is why I would have a problem or challenge discipling someone," is number 1, actually, is not even a spiritual, reason. It's just, I don't have time. The married people with full-time jobs and kids are not thinking this weekend about what they're gonna do with their free time. So that's true, they just don't have time, like, most of the time that is I don't have time, Grant. I don't have time to do what I need to do for myself. I don't even feel like I get enough time with my own kids. I'm trying to carve things out of my schedule, not add more. So that's why I do think it's important to differentiate the type of like mentorship and discipleship. Like, what kind of format are we talking about? Are we talking about come and meet with me? Are we talking about come and follow me? Because you may not have time to add something to your calendar, but you may have time to include someone in your calendar. It all depends on your time. Two is not just I don't have time, but it's I don't feel qualified, like you just said, Zach, and that is a super common one, and the enemy has been going after that one successfully for years. The irony is you don't ever read the scriptures and see someone who's qualified being called by God, and so I always like to stay, especially when it pertains to discipleship, when it comes to that concern of I don't feel qualified, is I try to remind people or change the question basically. I'll say instead of asking yourself, do you feel qualified to disciple someone? I want to ask you, do you feel like you're spiritually a couple steps ahead? Because often if we ask, do we feel qualified to do anything that God called us to do? I don't think he wants us to feel qualified. So let's just throw that question out. But I would say, do you feel spiritually a couple steps ahead of the next generation? Because that's all it takes. Like Paul didn't say, come and be like me. He said, come and follow me as I follow Christ. And I love that because it takes the weight off of it's not me making you like me. It's also me not being having to be perfect. I sometimes even say, look, I want to pour into you, or you're asking to be poured into by me. Follow me as I stumble towards him, or you can stumble with me as I stumble towards him. I will not stay here. I will continue to grow closer to him, but it won't be perfect. And then last thing I'll say on this qualified thing I've been thinking about lately is um it's funny, but I've noticed that every stage of life seems to have like a question that you're haunted by. Like when I was single, I was always haunted by the question, when are you gonna get a girlfriend? And then when you finally get a girlfriend, like it could be a week into having a girlfriend, and people will then switch the question to your new haunted question. It's, hey, when are you thinking about proposing? I'm like, no, I've just finally got a girlfriend, and now you one weekend asking when am I going to propose? It was crazy. This happened to me and Shane when I finally proposed. I'm talking about at the proposal party. People were like, "Do you guys have a date? You guys think you're gonna have kids?" It's like once you get married, it's like, when are you guys thinking about having kids? Once you have, I always wondered after you have your kid, what's the question after that? And I've learned it's, are you gonna have another kid? When are you gonna have another kid? And eventually, I guess it's, are you done having kids? And it just seems like it keeps going and going. It's like then the questions even are about your kids. When do your kids enter into school? When do they graduate? Now you're vicariously answering questions for them. And basically, it's like every new stage. When are you going to become an empty nester? What is that going to look like? And I think it's good as it shows like there's these stages and there's seasons. And so you might be 5, 7, just 2 questions ahead of some of the people that you think you're not qualified to help, but you've been through that stage. So even if it's mostly lessons through pain, you can help them avoid that pain because you've been through that season. Let alone if there was some wise decisions you made that you're like, hey, I learned a little bit the hard way, but I did figure this out. And if I could give you any advice in this season, I think you should prioritize it. And for the life of you, try to avoid this. That's like innumerably helpful for young people in a stage that's 2, 3, 4 steps behind you.
And like I have found that the most powerful thing, which this makes sense because they talk about it in the Bible, is just your testimony. Like your testimony has so much power. And I think whenever I think of testimony, I'm not thinking about how I came to know Jesus. I'm just talking about me living life as a disciple of, as a disciple of
Yeah.
Jesus. And so it's like, man, my stories, like I can tell you, hey, here are the 5 things that you need to know in order to go to college. Or I can tell a story about me whenever I was in high school trying to figure out how to go to college.
Yeah, so good.
And
Man,
man,
I've
just
always
like,
associated of testimonies, like honestly, mostly to evangelism, but that is so true. Is testimony is a tool for discipleship as well.
yeah, man, like, Peter Lewis, Peter's up in Dallas. So he's a good friend of mine. And like he told me this a long time ago. He was like, man, once upon a time is just gonna be so much better than ABC. And I was like, man, that is such a good, like, just there's so much
Explain that.
power in our story. So like I know especially me, as a mentor, like I love to give advice. I'm like, hey, here are the 17 things that you need to know in order to have a quiet time and go to college and get married and not have sex before marriage. And I've just found that like that is just not for 90% of the kids that I spend time with. They're not interested in my advice because they've got so many people giving them advice. They've got teachers, they got coaches, they got, and so, but what I have found is when you share your story, one, it is more engaging, but two, there's a level of authenticity in you just being just so open
That's good.
that screams humility. And there's nothing more attractive than being humble. And so you can talk about your successes all day long, and that's good. But when you start talking about your failures and when you start talking about how you messed up, or when you start talking about how, hey, man, I did this and actually this happened and it was really hard, that just tends to be something that a kid's going to remember just a whole lot better. You know, like
Yeah.
you talk about creating these core kind kind of kind of memories, which is fantastic. And some of my favorite things that I can remember is whenever a person that I thought was perfect shared a story about how they weren't perfect.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. John Maxwell has a pretty popular quote where he says, if you want to impress people, share your successes. But if you want to impact people, then share your failures. And dude, honestly, yeah, I was excited to come on this, and this is why I'm asking you questions because I've always wanted to learn a different angle on discipleship or mentorship that I haven't learned. But that testimony concept is really big, and there's so much less weight and pressure. It feels like for every person, if it's like, no, it's not. You need to be able to preach the whole gospel. I was just like, tell your testimony, and it takes the weight of it. It's not even, oh, and you're the hero. It's this is just how I responded to what God did. He's the instigator, and I did respond. That's my, but I'm step two. I'm not step one. Um, and just what you said about yeah, just I mean that's super. Then lastly, yeah, you say talking about stories. It's making me think about one of my kind of coaches and mentoring when I was really young. Uh, I don't know if he's right or wrong, but I feel like I've seen through experience that he's right. He was really big on like, dude, don't just go in, start a message and it's like say controversial stuff and try to like convict them and then make your points. He's like, tell the story. He's like, and it's pretty common. If you watch any TED talk, it almost always is like I almost like laugh at the way because they're so mechanical about it. But it's like it was 1882 in the Benjamin. It's like or there I was laying on the ground wondering, "How did I get?" So they always start with a story, but you do he said, people it just stories disarm people at the beginning. People may not follow you if you start with a lesson, but they'll follow you if you start with a story because they have no reason to not trust your story. And, again, there's less ways. I really like that. I wanna encourage people more in the discipleship, especially if they don't feel qualified. It's like, "Hey, you don't need to be a great orator. Can you share your story?" Is a small nuance, but, like, super helpful in a practical way.
Well, and like I have found too in this age of like social media where like everyone's trying to look perfect. It's like, man, kids actually are more like they desire more someone who isn't that because it almost gives them permission to not be perfect, you know? And
Right,
so I don't
right.
know.
A
It's
quick
cool.
story, if you're cool with me sharing this, is
Yeah, yeah, please.
it's making me think of it is, back in the day, of course, I lived in Dallas before Nashville, with being with Saints and Gabriel and Becca, and I remember when I was writing The Passion Generation, I was thinking, I wanna interview a couple people who were just amazing parents, um, in the sense that they didn't just raise kids that were all believers, they raised kids that were, like, powerhouse leaders, and that's not the requirement to be a great parent, but it says something when, like, every one of your kids is just, amazing, and there's not too many I know like that. In fact, I have an episode, coming out on my podcast next up with Lisa Bevere, and I do think John and Lisa Bevere, I know all their sons, and all of them are amazing, but more than that, well, it's not a competition, but I would say Dr. Tony Evans, I gotta give him his flowers, is that his kids are, like, amazing. And not even just, oh, they're all pastors. They're in different industries. Like, from what I understand is Jonathan is a chaplain for, I think, the Mavericks and the Cowboys. Then, two of his daughters, speakers, and Anthony Evans in music, and I believe a coach on The Voice, and it's like, they all have and hold their convictions, they all lead, they're all some in ministry, some not in ministry, different industries, and anyway, one of my friends thankfully got me, like, a 30-minute meeting with Dr. Evans, one of the most nervous, meetings I ever had because 'cause I'm like, "Hey, I just wanted to ask you, man, what is, like, one of the biggest things that you believe contributed, like, number 1, you had to narrow it to 1, contributed to the strong faith of your kids being great leaders?" And he's Tony Evans, I'm thinking he's gonna say the Bible, is one of the best Bible teachers. I think he's gonna say maybe the pulpit, maybe for sure the church, like a village to raise a child. It's the whole community. And he like just tapped the table in front of us. He said it was the table. That was probably the biggest thing that contributed to it. And, I gotta memorize this verse that he quoted, but it was around, like, the idea of your family is around the table, and it's a verse in Proverbs, I believe, and they
Mhm.
grow up to be long, shoots, I believe it said, and, he just said, we were so intentional with the table, like, family dinners were super important. Even today, apparently, the kids fly back once a month, once every 2 months, and they do dinner together. No matter how busy they are, they're coming together at the table. He said the new relationships were in your life, whether it's new friends, especially someone you're dating, hey, that's fine. Bring them to the table. We all want to meet them. Like it was, we're gonna pray for missionaries and learn about some missionaries, and then we're gonna give to some missionaries out of our allowance. We're gonna, if there's conflict, we all know happen in the morning. We all know tonight at the table, we're gonna talk through it. And I just know if you got to witness that, it doesn't have to be perfect like that, but some of the most powerful, memorable moments I had with people who discipled me were not when they were on stage. Though I've been discipled by some amazing leaders that were on stage at big stages. It was at tables with the people close to them, with their family. And so it's helped me take the weight off, and I hopefully helps you who think about being unqualified or not having this big, glorious life. Because when I hear a great orator like Dr. Tony Evans, they actually was a table. I'm like, well, luckily we all have one of those and, that's a pretty cool place to start if you feel like you don't have anything to offer.
Man, and I think that's so powerful because, like, I think the table signifies so much. Like, whenever you have a spot at the table, you belong.
Right.
Whenever you have a spot at the table, like, you have that person's undivided attention. You're in a safe place. You're a part of a family. And, like, especially for a kid who grows up, maybe they've never experienced what it means to be a part of like a healthy family. Like
Mhm.
part of my story, man, is like I didn't sit down and have a like what you would think of when you think of like a family dinner until I was in my mid 20s, and I
Right.
sat
Same.
down with this guy, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? Like they're all
Yeah.
talking to each other, they're all asking questions, they're all learning, like it's deep conversation. Like they're sitting there after they're done eating and still talking. And it was just like such a foreign concept to me. But it was so attractive. So I was like, man, I don't know what they have, but I want it. And so
Yeah.
um super cool, man. Also makes me think of that like Second Samuel 9, I think it is, where like David invites Mephibosheth, who is the son of our man, Mr. Jonathan, and said, "You have a spot at my table," and it like transformed his life. But
Yeah. There's a line that I recently heard that I found to also resonate with others, so I've been quoting it. I heard it from Kara Powell, who was quoting another pastor she was talking to, who I guess this pastor said, "Warm is the new cool." And I really like that phrase. That's like something you could put on a t-shirt because the idea of being unqualified, usually when it comes to next gen, it's because older generations feel like, where are we being discarded now? Like, are we obsolete? Are we not important anymore? So always talk about the next gen and they're so cool. They dress different. Their music's different. Their technology, they know it so much more. You just feel like, I don't know if I can relevant to the next generation. I don't know if I'm really that cool and just the idea of like, no, you don't need to be cool. Can you just be warm? Like, just be a warm face, like a friendly face, a good neighbor, like a hospitable person, because that they don't get a lot of. Like, everyone's trying to be cool online. We all even know it's fake. Like everyone's putting on social media. The unspoken rule is show the best and then just hide the rest. And so to be warm is man, that's a superpower in today's culture right now. And older people actually tend to be warmer, generally. There are the people that just critique and hate on the next generation, so don't do that. That's a first place to start. But man, be a warm. Last thing I found this is there's a pastor in Denver, Narup Alphonse, who said, hospitality is where the Great Commission and the Great Commandment come together. It's kind of like we're hosting you in an evangelistic way, but not in a on a soapbox and on a street corner, but like in our home, in one of the most welcoming ways. And you think about Jesus, there's so much of like Zacchaeus, he could have shared the gospel right there. He's Jesus, like, no, I want to go to your house, your house. And I always think, man, Jesus was one of the most hospitable people, and that bro didn't even own a home. And so if you think, "Oh, I don't know, my house isn't great, my apartment, I don't own much," it's like, Jesus didn't even have a house and he was hospitable. He was, like, hospitable at other people's homes. And so, how often he went over, and I've really tried to add hospitality to my evangelism, approach and discipleship approach, because being warm truly is, like, the new cool right now.
That's awesome, man. Um, that's a great story. Okay, so we talked about excuses that keep people from mentoring. We talked about time. We talked about qualified. Give us those last two.
Yeah, the last 2 was, I don't have time, I don't feel qualified. No one ever discipled me is the third reason most people say, they're not discipling someone. And then fourth, they'll say, I don't know how, which usually follows it. It's like, hey, if no one ever poured into me. So fourth, I don't know how. How would I know how to give what I never received? And that's where, yeah, that's where I try to, I have kind of a framework of 4 stages of discipleship, which is being a learner, and then being a leader, then being a disciple maker, and then being a multiplier. To me, I try to say, hey, well, gauge where you are. Many of us are learners, but what if we were to move towards being a leader, in the sense that a learner to me is, it's like if you've never committed to a relationship or into someone else, I believe you're still a learner. And I do believe there's a lot of Christians in the church who technically lead things, or manage things, but they've never committed to a relationship with someone younger in the faith. And so I do think we need to go not by the world standards of leadership, but Jesus' standards of leadership. And he called us to go and make disciples. And so if you've never made that commitment, I consider that person still a learner. It's not bad. There's way worse things to be. It's like, okay, when are we going to let that not terminate on ourselves and also funnel into somebody else? Once you make that commitment to someone younger in the faith, when I'm talking to someone who's like, I don't know how, then I'm like, that's when you become a leader. John Maxwell has this quote that's helpful when people are like, wait, I am a leader. Like, I'm in charge of this. I literally have a title of like lead this or director this, or people report to me. And John Maxwell's quote is, you may think you're a leader, but if no one's following you, then you're technically just taking a walk. And taking a walk is a healthy habit, so it's not even bad. I'm just saying, if you don't have anyone following you, you're not leading someone. You might be in charge, you might be a manager, you might be the director, and that's all those things are good things. I just wouldn't say it's leading someone who's following you. Then after learner, leader is disciple maker. I believe I call that a disciple maker because I believe once you disciple someone who disciples someone, that's when you become a disciple maker. And that's really fun when you get to pour into someone who's also pouring to someone else. One of the best ways to receive things with such intentionality is when you know you're receiving it not just for you, but for others. The man who first discipled me 2 weeks into being saved, he didn't just say, I'll pour into you and I'll take you under my wing. He actually gave me a challenge. Like it hinged on something. Is he said, if I'm going to pour into you, you have to go and reach your school for Christ. Like the next 2 years, you got to be the biggest light they've ever seen. And maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was a mutual relationship where he's like, I'm a youth pastor. I want to reach your school, but I will pour into you. And the more you respond to that and you reach your school, the language I've liked that I've heard from some mentors is, I'll match your energy. And I brought a lot to the table and he matched it. And it was amazing to see like dozens and hundreds of young people from my school come to that church, and many come to Christ, and many become close friends and find community. So that was when he was pouring into me, who was pouring into someone else. And I was learning every Wednesday, not as like, what's next? It was kind of like, man, I'm writing down notes because I'm thinking about who I'm trying to share this with, and this weight, I think a good weight that was on me. And then lastly, learner, leader, disciple maker, then multiplier. Um, I'm sure, Zach, you know people like this, but we don't often see too many people like this where they have relationship after relationship after relationship. There's people that have been poured into by the people they poured into that they don't even know. And they will not know them till heaven. To me, that's the scorecard. It's not the only scorecard, but it's something I would hope to be added to everyone's scorecard is you get to heaven and you realize there's fruit growing on other people's trees because of people you poured into that you never knew they then poured into other people, who poured into other people. I mean, to me, I don't know how that's not what we would want to do when we see Jesus say, "Go and make disciples," as his last words.
Yeah. Man, everything that you just said reminds me of the book. It's called The Making of a Disciple by Dr. Keith Phillips.
Okay.
Ever read that one?
No, I need to.
Oh, dude, it's it's uh it's kind of old. I think it's written in the 1980s, but he talks about how you don't really know, and this is kind of a bold statement, but you don't really know if you've truly made a disciple until the person you invest into someone else who invests into someone else. And I'm
Yeah.
man, but
The high
I
cost.
mean, but like that is how generations change. Like that is how all of the cycles break. And so, man, that's such a good word, Grant. Um, okay, man, we are coming to the end of our time here, but any last words of wisdom that you have for someone trying to build a relationship with a mentee, with a kid?
I I like to sometimes say this as like a last word or encouragement is I just want to acknowledge that discipleship is really, really hard. I'd rather just say that right up front than try to like there are times I want to remove every difficulty and be like, "Oh, it's easier than you think," and almost like beg and market and persuade. It's like I'm not a salesman for discipleship. I'm just echoing what Jesus told us. I think his last words should be our first priority, and I also just know it works. Like I know it works because Jesus said to do it. I know it works because Jesus chose to do it. And then I get the privilege to gather some of the most high capacity young leaders in America that are in their 20s and 30s who are like business leaders, nonprofit leaders, speakers, authors. They're the unicorns. Like when everyone's talking about who's leaving the church in the next generation, I'm trying to find who's leading in the church in the next generation. And I'm just telling you, like almost all of them have in their story a common trait of someone older invested in them, spoke life into them, identified gifting in them, and then verbalized it, gave them opportunity to fan that gift into flame in their teenage years or in their early 20s, almost every time. And so when I'm like, okay, Jesus did it, and we didn't even know what he was doing until he started doing it. Like that to me is crazy. Like God was on earth and we don't know what he was doing generally until he made disciples. Um, we wouldn't even be here if Jesus didn't make disciples. Like Jesus could have done everything that he did, like heal people, walk on water, every single thing we know him to, like turn water into wine, even die, go to a cross sinless and give his righteousness for our sinfulness, all of that. And I'm like, wow, what's crazy is he could have done all of it. But how much would it change us being here today if 12 people weren't with him the whole time he was doing all that? Because when Jesus left the 5,000, for the 12, to me, that really changed my scorecard. Like I reread the Bible, challenged by Jeff Vanderstelt, a great missionary, a missional leader who made me really look at the Bible and say, I'm going to reread the New Testament and look at what does Jesus value that we don't really tend to value in the Christian world today. And what does he not value that we really, really value? And when I saw Jesus have 5,000 people coming from Dallas, I'm like, that's the win. When you can be a leader who can gather 5,000, man, that's especially out of nowhere. People like Time Magazine. That's when you're going to be on the cover of Outreach. Is when you can be that gather 5,000. And there's no way today if a leader had 5,000 didn't have some type of follow up plan. Like today, we would be like 5,000 people came today, y'all. Next week, like let's launch this into a church. You're trying to reach as many people as possible. This is the best place to start. You got 5,000 now, not just a measly 12. Um, or at least do what we do at conferences. Like, all right, every year, this year, at this time. Let's come back and bring more people. Let's see what God could do. It's not even bad. Why did he not do that? Like in our standards, what a missed opportunity. He left the 5,000 and continued discipling the 12. What a different like path to getting the gospel out there and changing lives is like forming hearts instead of gathering crowds. It's just very different than us today. And so I would just say my encouragement is to think about this is the way to do it, and it works not just back then but today. And maybe it's something you haven't thought about, or unfortunately, many Christians never ask us, "Are you discipling someone? Who are you discipling?" That's I feel like we have more accountability to Christians of like, who are you voting for? And who are you giving? Are you in a small group? All these things aren't bad questions. I'm just like, man, we asked and hold people accountable to all these things, but not the Great Commission. And I like that to be added to the scorecard. And then the last thing is if you feel like it's gonna be hard, it is. It'd be like I feel like I get asked all the time, basically for the silver bullet on discipleship. And I've started just saying, I'll give you the silver bullet on discipleship if you tell me the quick silver bullet on parenting. And I've never had a parent be able to tell me, if you just do this one thing, parenting is going to be easy. So I don't think me or Zach can give the silver bullet. It's one of those things you just got to accept. It's hard work and it's worth so much. The impact is eternal. But it's going to help us better if we count the cost and know it is hard work. I actually think on the back end, it's super fun. It's super life giving. I've seen so many older leaders that felt like their glory days were behind them, who then switched their mentality to discipleship, and all of a sudden it's like a new win and a new wave of like, oh, I'm not done. I'm not passing the baton. I just got a whole new season. Instead of passing the baton, they started playing pickleball with the young leader, and I like that analogy way better these days. And so, yeah, this is gonna be hard, and it was hard for Jesus. Even Jesus, one of my favorite verses that he said that you will never see on a coffee cup. You'll never see this verse on a t-shirt. Red letters. Jesus said in Matthew, man, I think it's 15:15. He said, "Oh, how long will I have to put up with you people?" And when I saw Jesus say that, like, man, he said, "Oh, how long will I have to put up with you people, you twisted and perverse generation?" And he was talking about the disciples. I'm like, okay, Zach, I'm not a parent, but I gotta assume that almost every parent, not out loud, though some have, but in their heart have prayed to God and thought, man, how long is this season gonna last? God, this one's gonna be rough. This is hard. Like, and that's what reality of developing people is like. That even Jesus, led by the Spirit, is sinless. Could say, man, how long am I gonna have to put up with this? And it just shows us, okay, this is a hard, laborious, worthwhile type of work that literally we're here because of the 12, not because of the 5,000.
That's a good word, Grant. Thanks, buddy. Um, Hey, man, if people want to find out more about you, tell them how to do that.
Yeah. On my website is just my name, grantskeldon.com, and that's Skeldon. And then for any type of speaking or consulting, and then also I got a podcast called Next Up, where I interview different leaders, and it's really practical conversations I try to have. So like Lisa Bevere, I know is the next one, and I know the question is, what are the 4 ways that we can fight for women without falling into the feminist agenda? So I know that can be a bit controversial. And then after her is David Platt. And I asked him, what are 4 lessons we could learn from the global church that we're totally missing in our leadership today? And so like, what is he seeing that he's like, when he's overseas, he's like, man, this is what leadership, if Jesus was today, this is what it looked like. Not kind of how I kind of was sharing about today, this is what we think it is. But if we really looked at what Jesus did, or we'd see missionaries overseas, because you don't get famous for being a Christian in a lot of other countries. You can here in America, and so it was very revealing to hear him. But that's Next Up, and on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple. But I think, and then all my social media is just Grant Skeldon, my name.
That's awesome, man. Great. Thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for your wisdom, for your stories, for all of your, yeah, man, it's good. So, thanks a lot for tuning in to the You Can Mentor podcast, and find us on social media, follow us, check out the podcast, share it with your friends, and remember, you can mentor.